Hello and welcome to this week's Elite Audio video. And I have to confess, this is not a video I ever thought we'd be making. But here we are, and here it is. And yes, the question, are we about to witness one of the greatest comebacks in audio history? So what am I referring to? I am referring to good old CD. Now, I'll be honest, I would have predicted, based on the uptake on streamers and the incredible demise of CD and the purchase of CD players, that this would have been confined to a very dedicated few that refused to give up on the format. However, thankfully, I did not invest any money in that prediction or thought process, because today we are seeing a remarkable upsurgence and interest in the CD format. Now, I think it's important to give a bit of history here, because as audiophiles, we have witnessed over the years the rise and fall, the rise again, and potentially the fall again of different formats. I remember the first time I heard a reel-to-reel and a true audiophile setup, and I was absolutely transfixed at the sound. It was that probably played to death but absolute classic Miles Davis kind of blue album. And it just sounded incredible. And it's an album, I must admit, I never get tired of listening to. There is always something about it that captivates me. So even from that first experience of reel-to-reel, then you consider vinyl as a format. And when I was younger, almost all of my spare cash went on buying vinyl. I actually had 2 part-time jobs, and I had a paper round, which was, looking back on it, when I think about getting up at, living in a small fishing village in Fife and facing some of the most inclement types of weather that you have in a harbour-based location, that was quite a hardy job for a young lad at sort of 10. I think I did it from the age of about 10 up to about 14 years old. And, it was like 5:30 a.m. My dad literally dragging me out my bed to make sure I was down at the paper shop in time. And then I dried dishes in the Crow's Nest Hotel. Some of you who have frequented that establishment will know it was knocked down and turned into an old people's home. And nothing to do, I think, with my dish drying abilities, but that's a story for a different time. So all my money was then spent on buying vinyl from the local record shop. And then something happened. My brother, who you will all know as my business partner, and at the time probably partner in crime, although we'll not hold our hand up to any published criminal offence. There aren't any, I can assure you. But it's kind of an interesting thing to contemplate. Anyway, invested, I think it was not long after its launch in about 1982, a Philips audio system. And part of that Philips audio system was a CD player. Now, I would have probably been about 17 at the time, I think. And in fact, let me think about this. I would be 18, probably going on 19. And Gary couldn't wait to let me hear this Dire Straits album, which was Brothers in Arms, and the classic track, Money for Nothing. I'd never heard anything like it. I mean, it just redefined what you thought was okay. Now, this was not a high-end system by any stretch, but for 2 young lads, it was something quite impressive. So CD then literally became the format to have, and year after year, manufacturers produced incremental improvements on previous CD player incarnations, working very completely to the Red Book 16-bit 44.1 format, which has never changed. Now that in itself tells you something. I remember when Gary and I started in this industry that streaming was very much at its infancy, and some of the early devices from companies like Olive, I don't know if you ever heard of Olive, saw an Olive. The Italian version of the Olive is, believe me, is much more palatable. They were some of the most unreliable yet really good sounding devices in their day. You could rip CDs when it let you. It had probably the most flaky operating system I have ever seen, and when they failed, it was usually terminal. And I think Olive no longer exists. I'm not surprised. Anyway, we then gradually saw the decline of CD, and we are where we are today. However, something very interesting is going on in the world of 16-bit 44.1 replay, and that is people are buying it again. In fact, CD sales, even at their lowest ebb, still outsold vinyl as a retail purchase in the UK. Last year we saw an upturn in CD sales from the previous year and the previous year before that. Now you see manufacturers like Luxman bringing out their latest version of what they call their entry-level player, the D-03R, which replaces the D-03X. Now, this is no small upgrade. Luxman have effectively designed a brand new transport mechanism, single laser, which is all that's needed for 16-bit 44.1. And it's important to add in here that generally speaking, DVD drives or universal players do not deliver CD replay in isolation to the best of the format's capability. So CD hasn't changed, but the means to reproduce it has. I'll include a link to Luxman's new player. It's absolutely incredible, I have to say. It redefines what is possible. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to pitch that Luxman against an equivalently priced streaming system, and we will play some tracks on CD, some on streaming, blind testing, and we'll tell you the outcome. In fact, for our upcoming showroom event, that is precisely what we will be doing. So the showroom event will be probably May, June time. We haven't set the final date yet. We've got to avoid things like the high-end show in Vienna, Austria this year. But that is something that you will most definitely not want to miss. So here are some of the reasons why I think that CD is making a comeback. Firstly, the improvements in the hardware. Yes, you can get some very cheap CD players, and they are exactly that. They are not going to give you, in my opinion, a gateway into rediscovering CD as if it were a brand new format. But when you consider the money that some people spend on streaming systems, now there is a very different kettle of fish. Of course, relying on my childhood as the son of a fisherman to come up with that expression. Things like power supplies, things like the internal clocks, things like DACs, and the ability to isolate these more efficiently, internal wiring, changes in technology, particularly in the DAC side of things. This has allowed CD to effectively come of age, but it's not just about the technology. This was a thought I contemplated the other day, as whilst not quite in my twilight years as yet, although some may disagree watching this, I had this thought, and here's the thing. If you subscribe to Qobuz, Tidal, even if it's Amazon Music, Spotify, we all have our preferences. If you decide that you no longer wish to pay a subscription for the privilege to listen to your favourite music, you are kind of stuffed, because unless you have another means of musical replay, then your streamer will become completely obsolete. Yes, you can sell it, but what then? So I had this thought that, and I'll bring this up on screen, I was browsing the price of CDs. Now, I must confess I have not done this for quite some time. And I was surprised. There was an example of a Blue Nile album, and I'll bring that up on screen. And recently there was a reissue of this on vinyl, which I bought with eager enthusiasm, as it's one of my favourite albums of all time. But in a new, incorporating all the best technology CD player, how would it compare to my beloved vinyl? And considering the difference in cost, is CD going to start giving me something, especially utilising the best technology that was hitherto kept from us? Because CD, let's be honest, one of the things about it was very clean, it was very precise, but at some time it did lack what vinyl gave us, hence vinyl never really went away. It's a format that stayed and has seen resurgences but drop-offs, and interestingly I do see a drop-off in vinyl interest, but I don't see that on CD. So when you do the price comparison, you can buy a really well-produced CD, brand new, from Amazon for about £7. Now, if you think that your average streaming costs you £20 a month on average, roughly speaking, that is 3 albums that you could buy on CD, or 36 albums you can buy in a year. And over the next, say, 10 years, while I contemplate my ultimate demise, I could, in theory, for the same amount of money invested in streaming, and obviously that will go up in price, accrue around, let's say, 360 albums. But here's the thing. That also means that I own that. It is my music. I don't have to pay someone else an additional fee for the privilege of playing that back. And as such, do I need to stream? Now, there are no doubts that streaming has some incredible advantages, and it's my go-to listening format, even for serious listening. I like the fact I can browse new music. I like the fact that I can discover new artists. I like the fact that I can create a playlist of individual tracks that suit what I want to listen to at that time. My normal listening is I do like to listen to an album rather than just pick individual tracks. I like to see the journey of the artist from track to track. It's like storytelling. It keeps you engaged from start to finish. So, all things considered, is the reason why CD is undoubtedly making a comeback for all of the above reasons I have just listed. The reduced price in buying the software, the incredible improvements that we've seen in the hardware, using the Luxman D-03R as a great example. You can buy Luxman's D10X flagship player, which, let's be honest, is the price of a very nice, pre-loved family car, but then opens the world of SACD, which is essentially DSD, as a replay format. And some of the greatest growths we've seen in CD purchasing has been on SACD. It's an interesting landscape in front of us, and I think for some of you watching this, this will resonate. The ability to own your music again. And I'll be honest, I've had some notes, by the way, I've not referred to them once. It's interesting how I can go off on a path and not use notes, but they were there for good reason. But I think the natural flow of things for me definitely works better, and I hope for you watching this. But I think some of this will resonate with you, and I think if you are genuinely interested in seeing how far CD has progressed, when we announce our showroom event, please get yourself booked into it. Even if you're not local, the East Neuk of Fife is a beautiful place to come and visit. So you could, in theory, have a great weekend here with your partner, loved one, and tie in our event to that very specific showroom listening experience where we will blind test you on what you think sounds best, an equivalent priced streaming DAC setup versus a CD player, both playing the same music. I think the outcome of that will be fascinating, and will it show that CD has finally come of age to an extent that it may even win you over when it comes to streaming. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that you should all put your streamers on eBay for sale. In fact, I think that both have a place. There is something about vinyl, the physicality of the artwork, the album notes, and yes, you can get these on CD as well, and there are many limited edition CDs out there. There's a Miles Davis double album. I'll bring that one up. I may have done it already, so I'll bring it up again, comparing the price of the CD versus the vinyl equivalent. And I think this is a beautifully produced album. If you don't have it, get it on your streaming platform, buy it on CD or vinyl. It's a great piece of musical history. Would I personally invest in CD? If you'd asked me that question a year ago, my answer would have been a very simple no. I couldn't ever see myself going down that path again. However, when I heard the new Luxman CD player, and I'll confess that I've not really done much in the way of CD listening of late, it's been mainly vinyl or streaming, the Luxman really took me by surprise. It's an expression I use often. I'm often taken by surprise, not always in a good way, but this was. And it surprised me again that Luxman had invested clearly a significant amount of R&D into what is allegedly, or what I perceived as a dying format. Yet, carrying out my research for this video, it turns out it's anything but dying. It's starting to thrive. So, to bring everything full circle, are we about to witness the resurgence of what was perceived to be a doomed and dead format? Time will tell, and it'll be interesting to read your comments in the comment section below. Please let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback. And on that note, if you have enjoyed this video or others that we have done recently, please like our video, please subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss out on great videos, he said, hopefully, like this one. And I do genuinely appreciate the feedback you give and some of the comments that I get when I'm chatting to you on the phone. And again, put me to the challenge. I love the challenge of being privy to the inner sanctum of your audio system and giving me the opportunity to help you come up with the best solution going forward in terms of an upgrade. Even if you're not in the UK and you're buying from someone locally, please use my many years of experience to help you at least understand what might be a good path forward. Here's my direct email. You can contact me anytime and I will reply to you personally. Everybody that emails me will get a reply. That is one thing I 100% guarantee you. So as ever, I hope you have a great week listening to music. Our next video will be about the Bristol Hi-Fi show, which we are attending next week. We're in the Matthew Suite on the lower ground floor. If you haven't heard already, we're opposite Acoustic Energy. We're in the room that Cyrus had last year. I really hope you come along. come and introduce yourself to me, say hello. It's great to meet those that are watching this video, and I do appreciate the support and the positive feedback that you give me week after week. It really does honestly mean a great deal. Thank you again for watching, and I'll speak to you again next week.